Welcome to TBL Scope. I'm Ryan Phillips here with Brian Giuffra. We are talking about the only sports news that looks like is heading in the right direction, which is that golf will be back in mid-June with no fans at the Memorial. They have already scheduled the PGA Championship for August 6th. The Ryder Cup is set for September 25th, and the U.S. Open will be September 17th, the week before, and the Masters is being moved to November. There is no Open Championship this year. That has been formally announced. Brian, you wrote a piece about this today about how it makes sense that golf will be the first sport to come back. Looks like mid-June we're going to get PGA Tour golf. Why did golf make the most sense as the sport to come back?
Because you really don't need a lot of people out there on the course in order to play golf, in order to broadcast golf, in order to get a sport going. And unlike some of those other sports, it's a non-contact sport. You literally don't have to touch anybody. You don't have to be within 6 yards, let alone 6 feet of anybody. You can stagger tee times. That's number one. You don't have to do the customary post-match handshake. I think everybody will be okay with that. You don't need rules officials. If you're not having fans out there, you don't need any of the volunteers. You can film golf from up top, far away from where the players are. So it made a lot of sense for golf to come back. I also think you could make the argument about tennis, but the issue with tennis is it's an international game. And while golf has a large international group of players, most of those players live over in the United States, and most of them play on the PGA Tour. So that's the reason why the Open Championship was canceled, was because everybody has to get over there. And there's obviously restrictions on international travel. You're talking about a 14-day quarantine. So that's why the Open Championship was most likely canceled. And that's the reason why the U.S. majors and the Ryder Cup can still go on, because most of those European players are based in America. And obviously, as I said, all of the non-contact elements of it. I really think this is going to be an important moment for golf, because when you think of the number of people who are going to be watching it, the way that they broadcast it now, the way that the players kind of handle this moment is really going to set the tone for not only the rest of the year for golf, but potentially for the next 10 years, because so many people are going to be introduced to this sport and the way that it's broadcast. And if you follow golf as closely as I, you know that we have a lot of issues with the way that it's broadcast, whether it's like too much talk, not enough shots. You know, there are all these commercial breaks. They come back and they're showing a putt that was just made. So I'm really, really going to be focused in on how it's being broadcast, specifically knowing that a new audience is going to be watching it.
Do you think the lack of fans will change golf at all? It seems to me like this is an event that could happen with no fans, and you'd pretty much get the same thing. Of course, the roar of the crowd on 18 on the final day and things like that, and you do get celebratory moments. I think the Ryder Cup will be different if there are no fans there, because that's a very fan-forward event and very interactive. That's obviously off till September, so we might be able to get fans at that. But, you know, starting with the Memorial and the PGA Championship on August 6th, probably not going to have a lot of fans there, if any. Do you think that will change the event, or do you think that it'll kind of be able to proceed as it is?
So I'll focus on the Memorial, because I'd actually, listen, who knows? And I don't want to speculate because I know nothing. But, the August, September, November, it almost seems like they did that because they're thinking they might be able to have
Sure.
fans. But no need to speculate about that. Specifically the Memorial and specifically having no fans there. No, I don't need to hear somebody yell Baba Booey after somebody hits a drive. See, well, that's good. See, I don't find that interesting. What I do find interesting is the people having to step back off of their ball because somebody's taking a shot in between their swing. There is a mental element to having fans there. Sometimes people ask me, are you ever nervous when you're covering an event and you're that close to somebody who's hitting a ball and you're like 2 feet to the right of them? And I'm like, no, because I'm not playing with you. You're a hacker. These guys don't hack. So I don't think that element of the game is going to be impacted. But I do think that, some of those moments that you see on a golf course, and it's also just going to be eerie, right? Like, are they going to have,
that's the big thing.
Are they going to have music? Well, exactly. Are they going to have music? Like, are they going to tell the broadcasters, like, you have to talk the entire time because it's going to be dead quiet? Obviously, they can still put the natural sounds, but, that's literally 1 millisecond where the ball's hitting, where the club's hitting the ball. The players, as I said, are going to be standing far away. I think that they're going to like overemphasize social distancing there to show like, hey, this isn't,
being
we're
responsible.
not exactly. Like, we're being very responsible. We're not trying to flaunt it. We're not doing this because, we're above the rules. We're doing this because we play a sport that actually can be social distance and still played. But yeah, that's going to be so weird. The quiet, and like I said, the broadcasters talking all the time is kind of annoying to us.
Well, and here's the thing is, will it ratchet down the tension? Will it feel like a practice round without the people there? I mean, that obviously there's the things we can't know, and I'm sure every golfer will handle it differently. But there seems to be on 18 or just in the middle of the round on a Sunday of a major or a big tournament, there is kind of this like building tension and everybody's murmuring in the crowd and things like that. And you won't have that. So I wonder if that will be, tougher for some guys, easier for others who are just like, oh, thank God there's no fans here. I mean, I think it'll be interesting to see how the golfers handle it. Obviously, as you mentioned, how the broadcast handles it. How do you fill in all that dead air that's going to be going on? I mean, there are times they just show shots of the crowd just kind of murmuring, after a big shot. It's layaway shots that are just fantastic and create tension, and that's going to be gone. So you're going to have to fill a lot of time on broadcasts, and also, it's going to be interesting because, I mentioned this when we, on the site when we were talking about basketball coming back without anybody, and you'd be able to hear everything if there were no fans. You'd be able to hear huddles. You'd be able to hear guys talking trash on the court, all that. In some respects, that's interesting, but it also would lower the level of intensity on the court, I think, if there's no one to build you up with that, roar of the crowd and all that stuff. So I wonder how that will play in golf.
Well, Tiger Woods obviously feeds off the crowd. What I just imagined was him winning the Memorial on like a flop shot chip in, and like he does the fist pump and he's going like crazy, like he like what he did after winning at Torrey Pines, the U.S. Open, and it's just him. Yeah. There's nothing else happening. It would be so weird, and
it'd be like your really Sunday round, like you hitting a big shot on a Sunday with your buddies.
I gotta be honest, that just lowered the expectation.
So, I mean, obviously, this is something to be excited about. As sports fans, there will be live sports in June, as far as we know. Obviously, this is anything could change, as we know with the new world we're in right now. Anything could change. Until then, we're still kind of finding things to watch, and I'm binging old sports TV series. I'm whatever just to get a fix of sports. There are some esports on. There's the NBA 2K Players Tournament. There's racing is doing essentially virtual racing. Formula One, IndyCar, and NASCAR are all doing that. There are regular esports on. Have you found yourself so starved that you're going into any of that, watching any of it?
I haven't, and that's because, listen, number one, I don't play those games anymore. I play FIFA. I do play FIFA still. They haven't done one of those, which is kind of surprising. Maybe the players just don't want to do it. But like watching people play Madden isn't as interesting to me as watching the Super Bowl on replay from even this past year, which I was at, and I've never seen the broadcast until I watched it here, which was fun. It was fun to see kind of some of those things that I missed because maybe I was focused on one thing and the broadcast was focused on another. So I've been watching replays of old sports, what you're saying, and I've been following on Twitter, because I've, just a sports nerd that I do have to see what people are talking about. And the only thing that seems of any interest to anybody is like the smack talk and the people getting blown out in the games.
Yeah.
And like, that's it. Like I saw Tyreek Hill lost by like 55 points and people were like shaming him. And then like Kevin Durant got blown out. And I think Marcus Cousins got blown out too. And I guess the only other thing I saw was that Kevin Durant talk smack about transition defense for the Nets, I guess. I don't even know who he was playing as. But like, if it's for a good cause, which I know this NBA tournament, the NBA 2K tournament is, $100,000 goes to a Corona relief thing, which is great. And I love that element of it. And so I support people watching it. But for me personally, there's like either I'll watch sports that have already happened, or like I'll talk about sports that could happen in the future. I haven't. Have you been watching it at all?
So my girlfriend and I were so starved for something to watch this weekend. We watched a virtual F1 race for like a half hour, and I have to admit it was kind of interesting. Like, because guys are taking chances driving that they wouldn't take in a normal car. They're all trying to pass each other, and if you crash into a wall, your car doesn't fly apart. It just kind of bounces off the wall, and you can get back into it. And they broadcast it like a real race, and the technology is so good that it looks, unless you look really closely, it kind of looks like a real race. And so there's real drivers, and it was actually kind of interesting. Now, look, I'm not going to watch that for hours on end, but it was a nice little distraction to kind of be like, oh, an F1 race. Oh yeah, it's a virtual one. Well, let's check it out for a couple minutes. And the Ferrari's real driver won it, and it was interesting. It pulled me in, but of course, if there were real sports to watch, I'd never watch that. But it was just kind of like, I realized afterwards, I'm like, I'm so starved for something to watch and something new and live, that I don't know the result of. And I think that is something that's been lost in this, is that, you can rewatch old games. And I've done a lot of that, just like you were talking about with the Super Bowls. And I've been rewatching some old basketball games from this past year. And knowing the result kind of does take a little bit of the magic out of it. It's still fun to watch. It's still great to look for things you missed, but knowing the result, I think, is really kind of hurts the experience a little bit. And so I think that's why I got suckered in, because I was kind of like, what's going to happen? And I have watched a little of the Players Tournament. I think they should turn that into a real broadcast, bring in, announcers, and actually announce it like a real game, and then interview the players during it, instead of just having the two players sitting there, because there's a lot of dead air and people not talking. And so I think that there's a way to do that more creatively and make it more interesting. As you said, great cause and everything like that, and I support it, but I think they could make that broadcast a little more interesting. But I do think that that's an element we're missing, is just not knowing the results of the sporting events we're watching, and being able to kind of, sit on the edge of your seat a little bit. I mean, who won the Super Bowl. It's rewatching it, you're looking for cool new things that you missed. And I agree with that. And that's fun, but there is some element of the magic missing, I think.
Yeah, well, I think broadcast TV in general right now has realized that it's sports and then like basically segmented, right? Because if you see what people are talking about right now, it's all Netflix shows. Like, that's what people are actually like talking about. And I feel like Netflix comes out as like a big winner for this moment right now. I don't know about long term. But I do think they look really smart for the kind of programming they're putting together, because that's what people are talking about. Usually what people would be talking about is what happened on CBS or ESPN or Fox or whatever one, right? But nobody's talking about that. And even like this Players broadcast, as I said, I saw a little bit of buzz around it, but there wasn't like that big buzz. And I do think, to your point, a big reason why is because, listen, number one, if I'm playing a video game, there's some smack talk, but yeah, to your point, there's a lot of just dead time where you're just like
focused,
and like,
yeah.
Who's exactly like, and like Kevin Durant's a cool dude, and like, he's very charismatic, but like, I don't care to watch him go like this in dead time for like, for 10 minutes or something like that. So I do think, to your point, there are ways that they could improve this, that they could introduce somebody who's like constantly prodding them and just telling them, this is what we're going to talk about next. I think that would help a lot. I wanted to ask you about Formula One. Are they doing it in like those pods? Is it like an actual simulation, or is it video game?
So it is a video game, and I think that they're all set up with like a steering wheel, and in their homes, I believe. I mean, we didn't see a whole setup on how it was done, but it looked like, it was that, they did show one guy who was literally sitting in what looked like a seat in a steering wheel and driving. It looked like he was driving a real car, and it was impressive. It's an impressive setup, and it looked like they were taking it seriously. I mean, they're having fun with it. Of course, you're seeing guys try passes on each other that they would never try, like braking really late, because you're not going to get slammed into an actual wall if you miss the turn. So, but it seemed like everybody was having fun with it. But I'm sure the guy who won by like 10 seconds. I'm sure he was taking it pretty seriously. If I'm going to put my name to this, I'm going to win. And so again, it was interesting. It was a different look at sports. I don't know if it's not going to replace. I'm not going to, after this is all over and there's real sports, I'm not going to go back to watching this, but it was a nice distraction for about a half hour.
Listen, the fact that people are actually talking about golf right now, like just tells you everything about where people are right now.
I know it would be the Final Four right now. I think it would be the national championship today.
National championship tonight, yeah.
And golf is the big story. So, hey, at least we know for sure. It looks like, we can't put anything in stone with the way the world is, but we're going to get golf in June. No fans, but we will have real golf competition, not an exhibition or a fun thing, a real competition. And they've set their schedule and ramping up. So that's good news for sports fans. Hopefully we get it and we get it there. So we're really excited about it, clearly, as you can tell by this video. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll be back with another video next week, but just enjoy the news that we will get some actual live, real news sports coming out pretty soon.